It's late 1959 in Britain. The air is damp, the streets are glistening with rain, and a cold wind curls down alleyways lined with brick buildings and corner shops. Streetlights cast a golden haze through the evening fog. From behind the steamed-up windows of cafes and petrol stations, drivers glance at something new passing by, something small, sharply styled, and unlike anything else on the road. That car was the 1959 Ford Anglia 105E. At first glance, it seemed like just another compact British saloon, an affordable commuter car for post-war families. But beneath that modest angular skin lay a story few people realized at the time, a story of design gambles, engineering innovations, surprising flaws, and a legacy that would ripple through decades of British motoring history. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 9 secrets of the Ford Anglia 105E that you've probably never heard of but won't forget once you do. Secret number 9. The reverse-rake rear window, a functional optical illusion. Let's start with the feature that stops most people in their tracks, that backward-sloping rear window. At first glance, it looks almost like a mistake, as though the car was designed upside down or sketched by a distracted stylist. But the story behind this glass is one of clever functional engineering. Ford's designers realized that by angling the rear window backwards, they could solve a common problem in rainy Britain: rear window visibility. This reverse rake allowed airflow over the roof to naturally sweep rainwater off the glass as the car moved. The result? No need for a rear wiper, saving both weight and cost at a time when every penny counted. But there was more to it than just rain management. The sloped design also allowed Ford engineers to carve out more rear headroom, giving backseat passengers a surprisingly spacious modern feel for such a small car. It wasn't just a quirky design choice. It was practical aerodynamics meets interior packaging, dressed up in jet-age flair. Number 8. Vacuum-powered wipers, the flaw you couldn't forget. Now, while the rear window was a triumph, the front windshield told a very different story. The Anglia 105E used vacuum-powered windshield wipers, driven by the suction created in the intake manifold. In theory, a clever cost-saving solution. In practice, a near disaster during every downpour. Imagine this. You're driving down a wet road, approaching a lorry to overtake. You press the accelerator, and suddenly, as engine vacuum drops, your wipers slow, then stall, leaving you peering through a blurred wall of rain at 50 miles per hour. This wasn't just a rare occurrence, it was an everyday reality for Anglia drivers. Owners quickly learned to feather the throttle or time their overtakes around weather conditions. Frustrating, absolutely, dangerous, sometimes, memorable, without question. Today, the vacuum wipers are remembered with a strange mixture of fondness and exasperation, one of those flaws that becomes part of a car's personality. Number 7. The birthplace of the Kent engine. Small block, big legacy. Pop the bonnet on the Anglia 105E and you'll find one of the most historically important little engines Ford ever built, the Kent engine. At just 997 cc, it wasn't about raw power. It was about simplicity, durability, and tunability. Its over-square layout, where the bore was wider than the stroke, allowed it to rev freely and breathe better than many of its rivals. But the Kent's legacy wasn't limited to the Anglia. This engine would go on to power a stunning variety of Ford models for decades to come, from family saloons to sporty Fiestas, and most famously, Formula Ford race cars where legends like Ayrton Senna cut their teeth. It all started here, in a humble, budget-friendly Anglia. What began as a commuter engine became a cornerstone of motorsport history. Number 6. The FourSpeed Transmission. Shifting expectations. Back in the late 1950s, most small British cars were still stuck with 3-speed manual gearboxes, a layout that felt agricultural and limiting on open roads. But the Anglia 105E broke new ground for Ford UK by offering a 4-speed manual transmission. And not just any 4-speed. This box came with synchromesh on the top 3 gears, making shifts smoother and more forgiving, especially for new drivers unfamiliar with the dark art of double clutching. This meant better fuel economy on long trips, easier city driving, and improved acceleration when merging onto faster roads. For a generation of drivers learning behind the wheel of their first car, this transmission made the Anglia feel advanced, even a little sophisticated. It may not seem groundbreaking today, but at the time, this was Ford giving affordable cars a technology advantage that left many competitors scrambling to catch up. Number 5. Motorsport Connection. Colin Chapmans' hidden ingredient. Perhaps the most surprising secret of all, the Anglia's unexpected connection to British motorsport royalty. Colin Chapman, founder of Lotus Cars, was always on the hunt for lightweight, simple, and tunable components for his race cars. And when he looked at the Anglia, he saw potential. The Kent engine, the 4-speed gearbox, the light chassis. Lotus engineers began adapting Anglia components into their early racing machines. The Anglia's mechanical DNA became part of the Lotus Cortina, a car that went on to dominate the touring car circuits in the 1960s. So while the Anglia never wore racing stripes or screamed down Silverstone in factory form, its bloodline absolutely did. It's a reminder that even the most unassuming economy car can play a crucial role in motorsport history. Number 4. American styling influence. Detroit dreams on British streets. One look at the Anglia, and it's obvious this wasn't your typical British design. There was something dramatic, almost theatrical, about its lines. Those pronounced rear fins, the crisp body creases, the wide flat front grille, and of course, that famous rear glass. The reason? Detroit influence. Elwood Engel, a key figure in Ford's American design studio, worked with Ford UK teams to bring a bit of jet-age glamour to the small car segment. Engel had previously worked on massive chrome-laden American cruisers like the Chrysler Imperial, and while the Anglia was a fraction of the size, the styling cues carried across. This was Ford's way of saying, you don't need to buy a big car to feel like you're driving something special. For post-war Britain, it was a bold, refreshing statement. A slice of Detroit, sized for suburban Essex. Number 3. The people's car. Learning, policing, and daily life. For many Britons, the Anglia wasn't just a car, it was their first car. Driving schools bought them in droves. Instructors loved their forgiving clutch, simple gearbox, and clear sightlines, perfect for teaching nervous new motorists how to master the roads. Police departments across the country also saw the Anglia's value. Compact, efficient, and easy to maneuver through tight city streets, the 105E became a familiar sight in urban patrols and traffic duties. Whether it was learning to parallel park or getting your first speeding ticket, chances were good that a Ford Anglia played a role. For families, it was a trusted workhorse. School runs, shopping trips, summer holidays, the Anglia did it all. It became woven into the everyday fabric of British motoring life. And for many, seeing one today still brings back a flood of memories. Number 2. Dashboard minimalism. When less was more. Step inside the Anglia 105E, and you won't find a forest of dials or a sea of buttons. What you'll find is clarity. A single, large, round central speedometer dominates the dashboard, flanked only by the most essential switches, lights, wipers, and heater controls. Minimalist, practical, intuitive. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about cost-saving in production, ease of use for new drivers, and keeping distractions to an absolute minimum. For first-time motorists learning the ropes in the 1960s, this simplicity was a godsend. For us today, it's a beautiful example of design restraint that still feels fresh. Number 1. The legacy that refuses to die. So here we are, over 60 years later, and the Anglia 105E is still here. Not just in private collections, but at classic car shows, in vintage racing paddocks, and even making cameos on the silver screen, most famously as the flying car in the Harry Potter series, forever sealing its place in pop culture history. What's most remarkable is how deeply loved this car still is. For some, it's nostalgia. For others, it's a symbol of clever design and underdog engineering. Restorers hunt down parts, swap tips in online forums, and bring these once-forgotten saloons back to life. And when an Anglia fires up and rolls down a British country lane today, it still turns heads, not because it's fast, not because it's flashy, but because it's special. A small car with a big story and a legacy that refuses to fade.